The word is, the sword. The sword is the instrument by which the demon of man-made time is slain, and his body divided into past and future, while to the gods is given rulership of the everlasting now, space. Oh, hello there. I was just doing some light reading here from Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian Symbolical Philosophy by Manly P. Hall, better known as The Secret Teachings of All Ages. One of the books I'm going to recommend to you, or commend to you, the viewer of this channel. I thought I'd do a little fun video here and recommend a few books having to do with, in an adjacent fashion, a peripheral fashion, to correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar. It will help you in the psychology of not only going down the path of learning this grammar, the mindset, the psychology, but also your navigational faculties and capacity in the now space, in real life, in the continuum. So, keeping on with this, what we would call esoteric teaching, in here, the keys are talked about. I know you may have heard DAVID-WYNN Miller talk about being a key master, key holder, these types of things. They are inherent in the tarot. So if you want to learn about those keys that David was talking about, you got to learn about the tarot. David was, for all intents and purposes, a self-proclaimed 92nd degree Freemason. So the first book I would recommend to you, if you want to learn about these types of things, this type of knowledge, which is ancient knowledge, okay? This is very old knowledge, esoteric knowledge. And the reason why I feel that it's never been established or accepted, really, is because it promulgates self-development. It promulgates autonomy in the human psyche. When you learn these things, there are tools that you can use to navigate through the now space that most people do not have, which is just like correct sentence structure. Most people, the 1% of the 1%, most people aren't going to learn this. Only a very few, and very few people have knowledge of this. Or they may have knowledge of it, but they don't have cognition of it, and they certainly can't use it in a practical manner. The Tarot of the Bohemians, if you want to learn about the keys. This book was published in, I believe, let me check on the title page here, 1892. Okay? It's very, very good in learning about everything to do with the tarot and its relation to what we would call the quote-unquote occult. There is another book having to do with the tarot and the Kabbalah, but I'll leave that one for later. For now, this is good enough to get you started. This is everything you need to know about the tarot, how it works. I'll show you one more little bit of for example, the sacred word and numbers. word. Get it? Yad-hi, vad-hi. Really, everything you need to know is right there. Right there. 1892. Now, if you'd like a complement to that, when you get done with that, and you want a further study of the tarot and the keys, done by someone who actually, in my humble perception, advanced the knowledge. You ready for this one? This Book of Thoth was written by who? The Master Therion. Or that guy. Okay? I know there's a stigma attached to that guy's name, but here's the thing. Did any of us ever know him? No. Do we know anyone that know him? No. Do we know anyone who knew anyone who knew anyone who knew him? Probably not. So all you have really is what you're told. But what's on paper matters. This guy knew something. Now, whether he was good or bad or good or evil, I don't know. It's not for me to say, okay? If he did the things they say he did, then yeah, he's bad. If he didn't, well, then they're liars. And we're all buffoons for believing historical bullshit. Okay. Now, let's switch gears. Next book. This is enjoyable. Like, this stuff like this and the secret teachings of all ages, that's scholarly stuff. That's kind of tough to get through for most people, myself included. Got to take a break when you read that stuff. But there's other stuff that's just as insightful, just as valuable from my humble perception, that's easier to read, and it's fun, and you really learn something from it. One of the books would be this one, by Carlos Castaneda, Journey to Ixtlan, The Lessons of Don Juan. Now, you can purchase his best-selling book, The Teachings of Don Juan. I think it's called A Way of Yaqui Knowledge or something. His very first book, known as he was an anthropologist, Carlos Castaneda, at least back then in 1969 when the book was published. And that's his most well-known book. It was actually his college thesis that he wrote, and it was accepted by anthropologists back then. But everything he did after that was not so much accepted. This is basically a rewriting of that first book, and I think it's better. It's an easier read, and it's got more data in it. And you will get to know the character known as Don Juan Matus, a Yaqui Indian from Sonora. Many legends surrounding this guy, but he brings to the forefront of philosophical knowledge the concepts of recapitulation, self-remembering, the way of the warrior or sorcerer, whatever it is that the Nahual, all these different terms, and it's basically about self-work, where you take accountability for yourself from day one. As far back as you can remember, there's an exercise where you have to go through a period of remembering every conversation you had, every person you met, every face, every name, every experience. You try to remember everything as best you can all the way back till when you cannot remember anymore. You're not capable of it. And that's how you recapitulate. You look at things from an objective manner, not an emotional manner, not a nostalgic manner, but as an objective observer. No judgments. You're just looking at your past life and taking accountability for everything that happened. And this is how you basically shed that and start new. As a warrior, a sorcerer, whatever word you want to put on it. I don't personally like the word warrior because, if you walk around with a contract with war, you're going to get war. I just like to be me, that's all. A better me. So that's the first one by Carlos. The next one by Carlos would be The Fire from Within. Awesome book. It introduces the concept of the petty tyrant. Very important in self-development. In being able to navigate through difficult personalities in difficult situations under duress and stress. It's a great guide in how to do that. Okay? Beautiful. And then the last one from Carlos is the active side of infinity, which gets into a much more philosophical type of explication of this system for self-development. And it brings into focus something we would call, well, something Don Juan calls the predator. This is a theoretical being or beings who, according to Don Juan, basically invaded this domain and are parasites, and we are their food. And what do they feed off of? Anger, jealousy, hatred, fear, all of these emotions that are negative. And it's a very heavy book. There are 12 books in this series with Don Juan, but these are the 3 that I would recommend. I'd recommend all of them, actually. I enjoyed all of them, the characters in them and everything. Beautifully written, very engaging. I think Carlos was an awesome writer with an awesome sense of humor, but this is very serious because this, the theory of the predator, directly ties into some of the books that were excised from the Bible back in the day during the Council of Nice, having to do with the archons, etc., etc. Does that ring a bell? Does that ring a bell with anyone? The Cathars. The reason why the Cathars did not want to procreate, because they didn't want to bring more food into the world for the demiurge. And then, of course, we know what happened to them, right? Didn't comply with the mandates. Anyways, this one is a good one too. Now, where did that come from? Some would say it came from Don Juan Matus, the Yaqui Indian that was in Sonora, Mexico, as related by Carlos Castaneda. There are some theories and some students of Carlos's that say that in the history lineage of Don Juan Matus and his sorcerers, that there was actually a Buddhist monk who came from the East and settled in Mexico hundreds of years ago. Well, a couple hundred years ago, 3 or 4, maybe, I don't know. Integrated, became a student of the sorcerers of Mexico, and that knowledge integrated. And that really makes sense because of some of the stuff that's in there is also in Buddhism, of which I also studied via Roshi Philip Kapleau and his work. Now, where did a good portion of these ideas come from? Or what ideas do they coincide with? This guy, G.I. Gurdjieff. Okay? This is probably the single most impactful literary work that I've ever read. Impacted my life. The 4th way I was introduced to it through this book, through PD. This is P.D. Ouspensky's description of his time as a student of Gurdjieff. Now we're talking about, this is late 1800s, early 1900s. Gurdjieff died in 1959. Okay? But this was like during World War I, World War II. Before that, the Bolsheviks, all this stuff. This is the shit, folks. If you don't read anything else, I would recommend this book to anyone who wishes to gain positive performance navigational tools for themselves if they're willing to put in the work and take accountability themselves. I think, because There's been reports back in the day that Carlos Castaneda would go to fourth way seminars back in the 60s and 70s. So he was aware of this. Okay, Gurdjieff had a school in Paris, an actual whole-ass school, where he had lots of students over there that were studying this stuff. And this goes into mathematics. It goes into physics. Like, it's amazing. It's got a lot of stuff in it. A lot of different stuff, a lot of different diagrams, ways of looking at oneself, and it's just amazing. I highly recommend it to anyone who wishes to engage in self-development, become a better person, and not be a reaction machine, not be a scaredy cat all the time. See things for what they are. I will leave you with this last piece of data. The law of octaves, as related to by Gurdjieff, states that a man or a woman, when I use man, I use in terms of mankind, everybody, right? Man, woman, child, hermaphrodite, toaster, identifies as a kitty cat, all y'all, cannot navigate along a straight line for very long. Say you want to vacuum the house. You make that goal. You get up in the morning, I'm going to vacuum the house. I'm going to vacuum it by noon. But then all of a sudden all this other stuff comes up and you don't get to do it. Now you could say that chance and happenstance, you can blame it on outside influences, which would be fair to say. But in actuality, it's you who didn't do it. You spoke something and didn't follow up on it. So if your conscience is listening to you, make these goals. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut the yard. I'm going to read this book 20 minutes every day at 10 o'clock. I'm going to, whatever it is. Chances are, if you actually keep your schedule, you get there purely by chance or happenstance. If you don't, that's the law of octaves. A man never goes in a straight line in his life. That's the beauty of correct sentence structure, though, because you can go in a straight line, but it's on paper. It's not here. Does that make sense? If you like this video, if you like what I just shared with you, I can do lots more videos like this. I literally have hundreds of books, folks. Hundreds. I used to read a lot, not so much now, but I have a lot of reading under my belt, a lot of experience with this type of esoteric stuff. And if you'd like to see more of what I would consider stuff that's compatible with quantum grammar, let me know. Because I definitely like to add this type of content to the community. Because I feel, because it was helpful for me, it'll be helpful for you. Thanks for watching. Que sera, sera.